All right, welcome back. We are MDEV1004. That's Mobile APIs and Frameworks. Start my door here. In the summer 2024 semester at Georgian College, and it's week 12, part 1 of our broadcast. It might be the only part. And we'll talk about why. Interesting things happen when you're working with mobile is the answer. So we're sitting at our last evaluation for this course is assignment 4. That's due next week, Sunday at midnight. 7.5% of your final grade there. We have 2 more in-class exercises to do, and that's it, right? For a total of 40%. Again, I'm taking the best 10 out of 12. So if you did kind of not so good on a couple, this next one today should be fairly easy. And next week, I also figure it will be fairly easy. So you'll be able to kind of snap up a couple of marks and pull up your average if you need to. Sitting at July 12th, the 12th of week of the semester, July 12th. August 1st is where we're at. See what happens to my brain? August 1st, we're happy month for those people who do that. Greek people do that all the time. Happy month is what we say. And so this is the first of the month, and we're sitting in August, and in-class exercise 11 is due this Sunday at midnight. Let's see what we're going to do with in-class exercise 11. So payment gateways, a couple weeks, that we've been doing these. Last week was kind of straightforward, and most of you did pretty good with the Android interface. Today, we're going to start with the Android interface first, and then hopefully, and I mean that, hopefully you guys can figure out the iOS interface for PayPal Braintree. I did this same kind of thing last time I did this course, way back, and the APIs have changed, which is going to make our day today very interesting. Let's see what happens. So what are you building? You're building a payment gateway again, equivalent for PayPal Braintree. We're not going to do the API piece, and I'll talk about why to save time. It's very similar in terms of what we're doing with what we did with Stripe last week. And so, but I want to explore some of the weird stuff that can go on with this. Okay. So, we talked about what they were last week. I kind of left this slide here because these are the examples I wanted to talk about. And remember what they are. They allow us to do this secure online transactions. And whenever I think about more advanced applications that we do build them to sell products or to connect with payments or something like that a lot. And that's why we're spending a couple weeks doing this kind of stuff. But let's get into it. So I've got some goals that I want to meet for today. And the first thing I want to talk about is, let's just get into it here, is PayPal Braintree, right? So what we want to do is I want to go to this link here. Okay, so this link here is the link for the PayPal Braintree developer account. So if I go to developer.paypal.com Braintree, and you're going to say, well, why Braintree? So Braintree and PayPal, they're kind of the same company, right? They've I guess I acquired Braintree and PayPal, and now it looks like we use Braintree for the majority of what we do with PayPal. So PayPal's payment gateway has kind of been wrapped into a payment option for Braintree. Okay, that's how it works. Now it works great for both desktop and mobile devices. I find that the desktop version is a little bit more stable, and we'll talk about that in a second, compared to the mobile version. All right, so this is what we're looking at right here. What we want to do, and if you notice, there's some options to accept payments. And one of them is, it says checkout UI, and it says build a payment form with the right level of customization for your needs. There's 2 options: the drop-in UI, which is what we're going to explore, and there's hosted fields, which is what you can try out if you're interested. We're going to select drop-in UI. So if we go there to drop-in UI here, it's going to take us to another set of pages, right? And basically what it says is, why would we want to use a drop-in UI? Well, similar to what we did last week when we kind of made the our user interface appear inside of both Android and iOS, it takes away some of the heavy lifting from us when it comes to things like saving a payment method and retrieving a payment method that already exists. So this is kind of really cool, and this is why I'm talking about it today. Okay? So there's some reasons why we would do it. And they've got a JavaScript version, right, that you can try out. And so if I look at the result, it kind of looks like this, right? Very nice. And you can see that this is kind of what you get if you're looking at a web page, and you can use a credit card number and you're good to go. So that is your result. Now, like I said earlier, definitely on the JavaScript side, like directly, I think it's really great. I think it's like, you've got very simple interfaces here. Literally, you just do a drop in, and then, you've used a sandbox account, and then you have a selector, and you just inject the information that you get from the, from PayPal Braintree, and then you're good to go. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So this is really where it's at. What we want to do is we want to just step back one bit, and if you sign up for an account, this is what I want you guys to do. Sign up for an account for your sandbox. So you need a sandbox account. It's free, and this allows us to do some of the testing. I find that between Stripe and PayPal Braintree, this was an easy process to sign up and everything else. I find this is even easier than Stripe in terms of signing up and checking things out. So this is kind of cool to see how it would work. And so try it out. I think this is one of your things that you need to do for your in-class exercise 11. But going back to this, then if we go back to this link here for drop-in UI, the next piece is, well, how do we set things up? Okay, so notice that there are a couple of steps here. So there's the overview slide, which basically talks about how we will do it, right? So sign up for your Braintree sandbox account, which is what I just told you to do. Then you can select clients. You can select Android, iOS, and JavaScript. This should really be flipped. It should be like JavaScript first, and then everything else, Android and iOS. iOS is definitely last. Again, and I'll talk about this in a second. Server SDKs, so you can actually choose a server. There needs to be a server for a very small piece of what you're doing, believe it or not. And of course, we're going to use Node, but you can choose .NET, Java, like lots of backends, even Python, and it's pretty good. And then you kind of develop your drop-in UI. So how does this thing work? How does this thing work at all, right? Well, what you do is your front end, like it says here, requests a token from your backend. The token can be anything you want, right, as an example. And what the token does is it basically says, look, here's the token from the backend. We're authenticated. Basically, the backend itself connects with the APIs from Braintree, and it says, yes, we're good. And so we send off a request. That's what it is, to your server. The server itself sends off a request to the Braintree server. The Braintree server responds, with a, it gives a response to your server, and then your server, produces a token that goes to your front end. Okay, and once you have a token from the front end is now able to authenticate, right, with your Braintree server, and it can kind of inject the user interface. That's how it works. Same idea that we kind of used with the Stripe last week. A little bit different in terms of architecture, but kind of a neat way of doing things. So this is kind of the steps that they talk about here. So this is kind of your structure. What we want to talk about is setting up your client. So the first part is let's set up your client. Now, notice that it says JavaScript version 3 SDK. They've updated stuff a lot. And you can choose other SDKs. So what we want to use is Android 4 to start off. So this is where we're going to start off with our Android SDK. Okay, so notice that see how the server is kind of like, is kind of grayed out? Well, because again, first you set up your client, then you set up your simple server, and then you go live. That's how it kind of works. Okay, so this is the way it works. We have a dependency, but my friends, this is where it gets a little bit, this is where it goes, gets a little hairy in terms of how this is going to work. So let's start off, and I'm going to do this right now with my Mac. So I'm going to remote in again, and just bear with me while I'm doing this, and you'll see what I'm talking about, how it becomes hairy. And last year, I would say that some of the stuff was a little easier. Okay, so that's what I found. I found that this wasn't as bad, in general, as what I found this year. Okay, this year, and I mean bad as in, when, and this happens to everybody. This happens to, if you're a JavaScript developer or a backend developer, things change all the time. Like, I mean, even Express changed a lot, kind of over the last couple of years in terms of the way they, the API calls work with Mongo and stuff like that. Mongoose changed a lot. I mean, they're constant change, and I find that on the web changed a lot, and mobile changed a hell of a lot. So let's start off with our project. So what I always want to show you is where we're at with this one. So last week, what I asked you guys to do is make the Android version of the iOS kind of UI that we made together. And this week we're going to do it the other way around for reasons, as you will see, very shortly. And it's not for any other reason other than it's just easier. That's why. So I'm going to do the easy part, and I'm hoping you're going to do the heavy lifting this time around. With what you're doing with iOS, and we'll talk about that. It's not that difficult. I'm not going to say it's like terribly difficult. But I'm going to make a brand new in-class exercise 11, and it's going to be in-class exercise 11 Android here. Okay, that's where I'm going to do it. So let's do that now. I'm just going to maximize my screen while we do this kind of stuff. And let's get into how this is all going to work. So let's kick off Android Studio. And again, I'm using Koala. I'm going to make a brand new project. Okay, so we're not going to kick it off with anything from before for reasons, again. And you'll see. So I'm going to click on Empty Views Activity, click Next. Again, you can see that my package name, what it is, and where it's going to go. Like, it's going to go inside of MDEV1004 M2024 ICES, which is where you should be kind of putting all of your stuff as it is anyway. So here we're just going to call this in-class exercise 11-Android. So we know what's going on, okay? Minimum SDK 24. But we might get challenged about, how this is going to work. I'm just going to click Finish here, and then we'll talk about the challenges. So I'll wait till everything works out here, and it's going to do its little dance, and we're going to get everything ready to go, right, which is what I want to do. Okay. Again, we're going to make a very simple interface here, and we're going to do that to save time, not because of anything else. It's not like I want to avoid doing interfaces, but you guys know how to do interfaces now, and you guys proven that for the most part. Most of you are doing great. The only thing that's not marked right now is assignment 3, and I will have that marked shortly, right? Because I want to make sure that that in-class exercises were also marked first. So assignment 3 is left over. I will get to it, but that's the one thing that we haven't marked. Okay, so. So again, we start off with this. I definitely want to use view binding, like we normally do. So again, what I would normally do is go to our Gradle scripts, right? And I'm going to go into the module level Gradle, right? And this is where I want to put in build features, right? So that's what I want, build features to be in there. And the build feature that I want is view binding. So if I type in view binding, and that's equal to true. So that is going to generate the thing that I want. So that's the first thing I'm going to sync. So I want to get that done. I want to test my app first to make sure everything is functioning. That's the first thing I want to do, right? Now this is all red because, again, this needs to be added to GitHub, so that we can ignore this thing for a second. So I'm going to come back here, so I'm going to leave this up. I'm going to go back to main activity, and again, just like we've done in the past with Android, what we're going to do here is I'm just going to do a private late init var, and we're going to call this binding, and it's going to be of type activity main binding. That's what it's going to be. And then just like normal, I don't really care about enabling edge to edge. Let's get rid of that. And we don't care about this part at all. That's all the new stuff. I do want to say that binding is equal to activity main binding, and then inflate layout inflator, right? That's what we've done many times. That's not new, right, for you guys now either. And then here in our set content view, we're going to do something like binding.root. And that's going to kind of set up our view binding the way we want. Okay, so this is all the new stuff. We could get rid of some of these import statements because now they're useless. The ones that are grayed out, we don't need, so this one we can get rid of. And we can definitely get rid of these two because we're not using those two as well. So this is what we're left with. And this is a great place to test the basic app. We're going to launch our emulator here. So again, I'm going to use Pixel 8 Pro. You can use whatever one works for you. And then once that's launched and running, I'm just going to maximize my screen here in iOS. Once it's launched and running, then what I want to do is I want to test it by building and running, and it should just say hello world. That's the first part. I'm going to put this part up on GitHub when it's done. Right, so very simple, in-class exercise 11 Android. We're just going to do this. And we're going to try very hard to figure out how to make everything work. Okay, so this is how it's going to be. So this is your hello world. We know we're working. Everything's grand. I'm going to go here into my terminal, and just like normal, would you like to update? Sure. And just like normal, I'm in the right spot, right? I can kind of go up one level to here, right? And I'm going to say something like git add dot, git commit -m, and we're going to say added project files for ICE11 Android. Okay, that's what we kind of did, and then git push. So that's normally what we've done in the past. We're good now. One thing that is great about GitHub is it always gives us some of our, some issues. If there's issues that come up, they'll come up like this. This is kind of neat and new for some of you. The Dependabot alerts. What do you do with those? Do you ignore them? Do you do something with them? What do you do? I'm going to click on this, and it'll take me to GitHub, right? And yeah. And when I'm here, it'll show me some alerts, right? And it'll tell me the kind of where I'm at for ICEs and stuff. If you actually look here, it says fast XML parser vulnerable to redos at currency parsing. All right, so what does it mean? And where is this? What is this thing? Well, it looks like ICE7 in our API, right? It's they found a vulnerability in the API that we made before. That's what this is, right? So it says high severity level, and then it says create Dependabot security update. All right, so if you ever see these things, if you actually create a Dependabot security update, it'll go through and update ICE7. Like this is way back. That's what's causing an issue because my repos are public, right? And that's why it's also coming up. And it's also telling me that if I'm using this live, this ICE7 thing, then it's going to have a problem. So you can see it takes this time, and what it's doing is it's basically changing the version, right? So from whatever version it was, it's kind of creating a security update into the patched version is 4.41. So it actually does the work for me. This is great. And it says if it can't do it, Dependabot cannot update fast XML to a non-vulnerable version, and the latest possible version of XML that can be installed is 4.25, and the earliest fix is 4.41, and then you could try again. Sometimes it'll work, and sometimes it'll fail like this. So again, for us, these are previous versions of our API. I'm not really that concerned, but there is ways of fixing this. I could try again, and I could just update my version. I can download my version of i7, the API itself, and then I can just update this to 4.41, fast XML parser, and we're good to go. This package is actually part of another package that has nothing to do with me, right? But what they've done is they basically say, look, here is where this is at. And we can actually find where this is, this XML parser, and then update that NPM module, and it would fix it. Okay, so I just want to show you that. Sometimes it works automatically. Today somehow didn't work. So I'm okay. Let's leave it alone. Let's move on. Those are the security updates. You'll see that they're there. And there's anything else that's in there, it'll tell you what those things are and where they are. So this is ICE7, ICE6, and ICE5. Somehow, all the other ICEs that we made are fine, right? But these ones, these earlier versions of our API, right, have issues. Okay, let's move on, because I'm not really concerned about these things. And I want to move on to the real trouble that we're going to have, which is, well, all that stuff I talked about kind of accepting payments from Braintree. Okay. So I'm just going to move on from this. This is all Stripe stuff from last week. I was left on. But one thing that we're going to be talking about now is this. Okay, so this is the next piece. Following the documentation, so if I was to run that, and let's just go to that, if I go to Sandbox, Braintree, gateway.com, and I've logged in now, and I've kind of created an account. If I was to log in, you're going to see that, I'll wait till this thing is logging in. You're going to see that there's a couple things. It gives you 3 pieces of information: your merchant ID, your public ID, and your private key. All of these is what, if you were going to create an API, a server, a little server like we did last week, you would need these 3 pieces of information to verify who you are when you're logging in. Okay, so that's what these things do. All right, so that's what this is. But we want to go to PayPal Braintree for a second, so let's do that. PayPal developer account. And if I go to the PayPal developer dashboard, it's going to take us to PayPal Braintree, developer dot Braintree. Right? So this is it right here. Let's go back to that. So this is what we're looking at, and that's what I showed you before. This is where we were when we were doing this stuff, and we went to drop-in UI on my PC there, and then we kind of said, well, I want to set up my client. And what client do I want to set up? I want to set up Android. So there we are. So this is what we kind of did so far. And the Android stuff, it's looking like it needs this dependency. Okay, notice that it's Groovy. Okay, so that's one thing. So Groovy, not Gradle. Some differences in the way this is showing, but not huge. So we just take this implementation piece right here. We copy it. We go back to Android, and then we go into the module level Gradle to set this up. And this is the first thing you guys should do. So there's module level Gradle. We can hide this for now. And then down in here is where we put that in. We can put it anywhere we want. I'm just going to put that here. It's going to show an error because this isn't Groovy, this is Gradle. And what we need to do is put in quotation marks here, quotations inside of parentheses in order for us to put our dependency in. So that's what the dependency is. I'm not going to add this to libs versions, the TOML file. I'm not doing that right now. This is the first piece. And my recommendation right there is start syncing now and see what you get, okay, what you get for the problems. We can watch the build happen, right? As it's syncing and all that stuff. And one thing you're going to see is this problem right here, right, which says, man, sorry, I don't know org.jfrog.cardinalcommerce.gradle. I don't know how to get that. I'm watching the stuff here, and if you notice, let's go back to the documentation. Documentation clearly says to do this. So what? Huh? How come is the thing that you would ask, right? And there's a reason for this, all right? There's a reason for this. So let's skip it for now. I'm coming back to that for a second. But if you notice, it talks about, kind of setting up your user interface and all that stuff and what you can do. There's defaults to Java. That always makes me feel something's wrong. Once something defaults to Java nowadays, I'm like, that's not good. It should default to Kotlin. Kotlin should be first and then Java second, because Kotlin is would be my preference every single time I code anyway. And then it talks about setting up your free account and blah, 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 and everything else. And then discusses things and how it would be working. And then it says set up a server. So nothing in here is going to really give you the answer about how this works. Okay. It does tell you, though, if you kind of skim in here, that it does say, look, if you want more installation techniques, take a look at this Android Client SDK guide. So, okay, we'll open that up. That's the next one. So the Android SDK guide, if you scroll down, it basically says, hey, what about if I want to get Braintree payments for a card? So like for, let's say, any kind of payment card, that's one thing we can do. So offer card payments. This is what I want to do. What about if I wanted to collect device data? I can do that. If I want to offer PayPal, if I want to offer different kinds of payments, this is the option that I have right here. And then if you scroll down, it talks about kind of how to do all that stuff. And it talks about the intents that you need to kind of put in and so on. Okay, so again, not a lot of information on how to fix my problem, which is like, well, this is no good. but there is this I found, which is the Braintree Android GitHub repository. It's not like they said something like, check this out. There's something you need to check here. But if you actually go there and check it out, if you scroll down, and it kind of says, well, here's my dependency. This is what I need to put in. And there's this little link here that says migration guide. Okay, now I want you to think about how long it took me to figure all this out, all right? Because back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It was pretty crazy. So I went to this link, and this link basically says, yeah, you're good. You know, you want to migrate and all that kind of stuff. And it talks about the migration guide, you know, which is what this is talking about here. And it talks about, you know, how to, you know, do all this stuff and, you know, how to, you know, pay for everything and blah, blah, blah. But somewhere in here, and this is the interesting stuff about this stuff, it tells you you need to add this piece. You will also need to add the sonotype snapshots, you know, whatever. This idea is the problem. This is what we need to do. Something like this, right, as an example for our little Braintree payments thing. Okay, so Braintree, and this is just cards as an example. You know, we don't want cards, we want the other thing. So this idea here is what we have to do. And this goes in your top level build Gradle is what they said. It's actually incorrect, as you'll see in a second. All right, so after a lot of putzing around, okay, going back and forth, because this is a problem, and if you can't fix this problem, you'll never make your app work. That is something that you have to fix up. And so, to save you time, I've done some of the heavy lifting for you. Okay, so that's of course what we're here for to do, right? So, so what I want to do is I want to add in, you know, some references as an example to help me identify and build my, you know, my Braintree payments thing. And if I don't do this, then, you know, as I said, bad things happen and it won't work properly. Okay, so where do you find this top level Gradle thing? Well, it's right here actually. So project settings. So here is where we start thinking about stuff we've never looked at before. Perhaps you've never even looked in this file. All right, but you can see here we have repositories. It says repositories, and there's Maven Central and Gradle plugin portal and blah, blah, blah. And here is where we're gonna add in our Maven stuff and for the Cardinal Commerce prod production of everything else, okay? So that's what we need to find. This is where we need to put it, is what I'm saying. So, so it's got to be within the repositories curly braces, and we're going to start typing the following. Okay, so I'm going to say Maven. I'm going to add some Maven stuff in here now too, because Maven is going to be the thing that's going to help us figure things out. I'm going to say URL, all right? And the URL is going to equal to a URI, and in the URI, I need to put in the link that is related to the thing that we're missing. And again, if I was to go to here, it's kind of pretty much this link right here that we're going to put in, but in reverse DNS order. So how it looks, and again, please look at the video for this one, is https://cardinal commerce prod. That's what it's got to be, Cardinal Commerce prod, and then jfrog.io/artifactory/Android. Oh yeah. And you would get that like this, right? No problem. A little bit of digging got me this part. Credentials. This is another thing that's really interesting. So you have to log in with your credentials. And the credentials that you have is a username, right? Which is, believe it or not, Braintree _team_SDK. And the password, well, that's really goddamn long. And it's like something insane. So I'm just going to copy paste it from my notes because that is just, you know, really, really long here. And I will give you the link for where I got this stuff in a second. I'm just going to show you what it is here so you see the process first, and then we'll talk about how I got all this stuff. Okay, so this is the actual password. Woo, right? Crazy password. All right, so this is the first part. So the first part is you put in the Maven stuff here, and this Maven stuff basically tells our project where to get that information. Otherwise, it'll completely fail every single time. And not only do I have to put it here, but I found that I also had to put it in the dependency resolution management section here in order for me to make it work. So Google Maven Central is where this is coming from. And right in here, I'm literally just going to copy paste the same thing. I found that this is the only way that it worked. Copy paste the same thing from here into here. Okay, so once I've done this, these two things. So again, I just got this part, as an example, and then once I have this, and I copied it right into here. And if I click sync now, let's watch it. So you can see that this is, we're trying to get rid of this. If I click sync now, then we're good to go. Where, oh where, did I get these Braintree credentials and blah, blah, blah. Well, if you were to search for this, so if you search for this part, right? So let's go into our browser here, and if I just put that in, let's say search, right? As an example, it's going to come to this, right? And it's going to say, welcome to JFrog, and log in, because JFrog is kind of like a CDN where we have all that stuff. So this is not really it, but it's kind of like this, right? Which is what we're looking for. So I want the Android developer docs for this. Well, let's take a look here. We have PayPal, we have Braintree Core, right, for the developer docs. If I go to Braintree Core, as an example, and if we look at the build Gradle for this one inside here, you would think that maybe it would be in here, because at the end of the day, it needs to do that logging in order for us to have that thing happen, okay? But not so. So this is not where it is. So this Braintree Core. So, but this is kind of where we need to look, all right? So this is, I'm just giving you hints on how I found it, which was like pretty convoluted, right? Which is the way I did it. So Braintree Android SDK. And the version 5 migration guide, which is, we need the version 4 migration guide, like, something else, right? And a migration guide. And this doesn't really do us justice, because this is kind of telling you what you got to put in and the payments and all that kind of stuff. And this is not really right. So maybe we missed a step. That's the next thing I said. Well, this is the GitHub repository. Maybe there's some other SDK reference. Well, that's this, right? And I find that, again, this can help if you're looking for documentation, but not great. JavaDoc, right? That's what it is. So let's step back one. So let's step back one to this, as an example. And again, what you're looking for is a GitHub repository, right, that is going to give you the link that you want for that stuff. And I'm just going to look at my notes to quicken this up, because I don't want to puddle around and look for this link myself, because, man, it's truly a pain in the ass to find all this stuff out. I wish it wasn't like this, but unfortunately, it is. And I'm just going to give you the link here. So this link, and I'm going to put this inside of your Blackboard as well. So this is the link that I found, and this is the Braintree. So GitHub /Braintree Android drop-in, and then the README tab is what we're looking at. And if you look there, it basically tells you what we want. This is what it's going to look like, the drop-in. And if you scroll down, there is a guide, and it gives you everything right here. This is the part that I just used, all right? And I got this, and again, from basically doing a little bit of searching, and found this piece right here is what you need in order for you to take away your problem. So that's step one. You need to get this done. Okay. And you're going to say, okay, what, Tom, interesting, but why, right? And I wish I knew that answer. Why that we have to do this kind of thing. Why isn't this good enough, as an example? And I know what happens is sometimes what they haven't done is some of these developers, they haven't kind of put this on the Google, the SDK sites. And I've had to do this before, and that's why in my mind I was like, okay, I've done this kind of work before. What is the problem? And this is the problem that I had. This is actually part of a larger repository. So let me just, before I forget, I'm just going to take that and let me just copy that and go. I'm just going to get out of this for a second. 1 sec. And just before I forget, I'm going to put this inside of your here. So I'm going to go here, and this is kind of like the guys. I've kind of put a bunch of things there. About PayPal Braintree, this is where you go for that. There's we're going to come to this Braintree testing because we need some testing numbers. And in here, I'm just going to put in that other link. So here's the link that you're going to find on Blackboard. So that way there's no issues for you when you're doing this thing, to find this. And really what this thing is the Braintree Android, and it's the drop-in docs on GitHub. Okay, that's what this is. So you'll see it, insert. And so go to this link here, the second link, if you're watching this video, and so that way you can quickly get to that when it comes to making your Android application. Yay. Okay, so that's done. Back to our Mac. Right, back to the Mac here, and let me just make sure this is maximized again. So we've got that part, and now we know this is working, and now we can start adding in more stuff. Well, we need a button. So one thing we have right now, if I go to my app, and if I go to Res Layout, and if I look at that for a second, here's my layout, and you can see it's Hello World. Let's get rid of that Hello World, because we don't need that. And instead, what I want in here is a button. So I'm just going to take this button image and just drag it in here. And the button needs some constraints. So we're just going to give it some simple constraints here, like 0, 0, and 0. And so we're going to give it automatic constraints where you do this. So the button's going to appear in the middle of the screen. And this is how simple I want you to make your user interface, guys. Don't kill yourselves, because like I said, this takes time, and you're going to do the other one for iOS, and the iOS part is, as you're going to see, a little bit more challenging than this part, right? Because you have to do a little bit of digging for the 4% this time around, and kind of look and see what all things that you're going to make. Okay, I want to call this button, instead of like the just a button, we'll call this the pay button, right? That's what we want. So we'll refactor that one, so pay button. And at the end of the day, that's all we really need to do. We need to change this so it doesn't say like button, it should say like pay with Braintree. Pay with Braintree, that's what we would say, something like that. And you would have this button at the end of your, like they have, let's suppose a little, kind of shopping cart, and you're ready to pay with Braintree, and you're gonna set up your payment types. That's what we're doing here. This sets up your payment types. That's how far we're going to go for today. Because again, it's really quite complex, believe it or not. All right, so we want to press this button, and when we press this button, it's going to bring up our little interface down here. That's what we're hoping to do. And that's kind of what we did previously. And we had a bunch of other extra data up here, but it was really useless. We just had to make it look like a nice little UI. If you want to add that in, you certainly can, but there's more pieces to this pie we'll talk about. Back to this. So now we're in our main activity, right? And the main activity is interesting because now, well, we got some stuff happening, right? So first of all, what I want to do is at the top, I want to start setting up some things that we're going to need, right? And we'll do it one step at a time. So I'll explain this to you. So first thing, what we want to do is we want to do a late init var, and we want to call this the drop-in client. So this is the drop-in client, which is going to be of type drop-in client. Okay, so drop-in client is part of the API. Notice that Braintree nicely came up with the drop-in client. We're good to go. We also want to create a late init var for the drop-in launcher. Drop-in launcher. We'll call this drop-in launcher, and this drop-in launcher is going to be of type activity result launcher, and the result launcher is going to be of type intent. Okay, so that's that. We're going to put that in there as well. So that's your drop-in launcher. Your drop-in launcher is going to be the thing that we're going to eventually use. Okay, intent doesn't know what that is. Again, you can import that class. Wonderful. We're good to go so far. So now that we have those three intents, those three things down here inside the onCreate method, this is where we're going to initialize the drop-in client with a token. Okay, so this token, and this is a placeholder. I want you to think about this now. In the past, we used things like Moshi and Retrofit and Moshi to connect our API and everything else. And we would have to do that here. You'd have to set up a bunch of different things to make this work in order for us to get our token back. But let's suppose we're just going to, for today and for testing only, we're going to set up a token, right? So I'm going to go val here, and we'll say that the token is going to be something like sandbox, and I'm just going to, I kind of generated a token, but it's got to start with sandbox, and it kind of looks like this. Okay, so this is the token that I'm using. Again, you can copy this just for testing, or you can make your own. What you really want to do here is replace this token would be something that we generate on the server, and the server is going to serve the token to our main activity. Mostly what we would use is some kind of, how would I state this, a view model or a data manager like we did in the past, and then it would serve up the token. We would kind of, from the server, we get the token, and that token is what I'm showing you here in kind of clear text, so you understand. Then what we do is we configure the drop-in client. So we say the drop-in client, hey man, here we are. And what I want to do is I want to kind of set up a new drop-in client object. And what we want to do is pass in this activity. This is the activity that we're going to use. And then we want to kind of pass in the token. So that token is the thing that we're going to use for our drop-in client. Okay, so that's the drop-in client. Notice it says, create a new instance of the drop-in client from within the activity using a tokenization key authorization. All right, so that's what this thing is. Again, we haven't authorized anything yet. The next part that we want to make this very simple thing work, again, this is step one, right? So we're going to come down here and we're going to say binding dot, and we want that pay button. We're going to set on-click listener. On-click listener. We want to use this stuff here. And we want to say that we want to have a new function we're going to make called launch drop-in. This is the first step that we would kind of put together. So we want to kind of launch drop-in from here. Gen pros. Yeah, I'll come back to that. Those people. So launch drop-in, and that's what I'm going to call. And I'm just going to scroll down here, and let's make that function. So we'll make a private function. We'll call this launch drop-in. Okay, launch drop-in. And that launch drop-in function is going to basically be, hey, let's do a val drop-in request. My drop-in request is of type drop-in request. You can see that that computes. And once we make a drop-in request, we want to use the drop-in client that we configured up here with the token, this part right here. We kind of instantiate an object of drop-in client. And from here, all we want to do is say drop-in client. And we want to say that let's launch the drop-in. This kind of makes the drop-in work. And we pass in a drop-in request, which is this thing. And that is as far as I can go without a bunch of deprecation. I'm going to show you the deprecated part, right? But right now, this simple part right here should be enough. When I press the button, it's going to kind of put together the little client for me, and we're good to go. It doesn't look like a lot, but here what I'm doing is, just to reiterate, simulating the server and what we get back from the server here. This is what this is doing. Okay, by the way, if you were brave enough to follow the documentation that we see here, so again it says do all this stuff. Here's what the difference is. Here what they've done is something different, right? What they've done instead, and if you follow this, they've got the implementation, and so this is what we did with the Android SDK here. We got documentation, we've got everything now, and then basically what it says is, okay, well, we've got our public class main activity. Let's make it the Kotlin way. Here's our class main activity, and not only does it inherit from app compat activity, but it also implements, that's the comma, it implements the drop-in listener interface. So the drop-in listener interface requires at least 3, if I'm not wrong, functions in order for you to override. You must override those functions to make it work. But here is this part that we just said. Drop-in client is a drop-in client this, drop-in request, and here's that thing. Well, I'll tell you right now, if you tried this out, right, the way it looks right now, it's deprecated. It's not going to work. So not only, this is the beautiful thing, not only does the documentation here is difficult, but if I was to, let's just do it. If I just copy this thing here, drop-in client, and I did this instead, okay, with a drop-in request, where the drop-in request itself is something that I want to, kind of put in, right? There's the drop-in request itself, the drop-in request object, right? You're going to see that it ain't going to work, okay? So it says, after you get this, you're going to present the drop-in UI, and they do this with on Braintree submit. So this is where you would make this a button, right? And this is what you're going to call upon the button click, right? Where the drop-in request, which is what I did just now, and it says drop-in client launch drop-in for result. I'll tell you right now, if you did this, again, I wish that this would work. It doesn't work very, very well. And even if I change this to the version for Kotlin, so val drop-in request, I did this, and if you notice I did this, let's go back to here. This is what I've done. I've kind of the drop-in, and so I'm going to actually launch the drop-in just to test it here. That's what I'm kind of doing, to kind of do this. If I did what it's showing me, which is, okay, let's launch the drop-in request, and drop-in request, if I launch drop-in, it only takes one object. That's what it says. So the API that we're getting for launch drop-in, it only takes in a drop-in request object. That's what it takes, which is the request. Okay, so that's the only thing it takes. Right now, if you look back at the documentation, it says, oh yeah, it takes the drop-in. It doesn't take the drop-in request if I want to launch. If I want to launch this one, let me just copy this. I'll show you what the difference is. If I take this, right, copy this, and I go back to my code here, and I put that in, right? So let's just paste it in. Now it's called drop-in client. Notice that it says drop-in request, and it says drop-in for result, and it kind of looks at it and goes, deprecated. Notice that? Like, take a look here. It says deprecated, right? I'll hover that again. Use drop-in, and the drop-in request goes here. That's the drop-in request that we kind of have to, kind of create. So that's what you put in here. You don't put in this stuff. So what this is actually doing is, here's drop-in, and here's the drop-in for result. There's two different things here. We're going to try one, but really what this is looking for is for us to get rid of all this. This is right from the documentation from their website, and it's looking for a drop-in request. And this is where it makes me a little mad, because when you think about it, it says, okay, so I've given it what it wants, this type mismatch. The required is a fragment activity, right? And so is it looking for this, right? Well, the activity is okay, but then I go here and it says type mismatch, required int, and I'm getting this. So this is where it's asking for what we did before. So what it kind of had in its documentation, which is, if you look here, it says this is the activity, and then drop-in request is the integer. This is actually an enum drop-in request code. So go back. That's what it's looking for. So if I put in drop-in request code, I'm going to just copy paste that. I'm not going to type it in if I don't have to. But I just want you to understand. Yes, I'm going to do that again here. Copy paste. I just want you to understand that the documentation isn't that great, right? So I found that last time I used this, it was just perfectly fine. If I hover over this, by the way, it's this unresolved reference for the drop-in request code. It doesn't exist anymore. So they've actually taken this enum away. Otherwise it'd be up here, right? They don't really give you directions on where to get it, right? If you were going to try and get this, they don't have a complete example of this as well. which is kind of weird. So again, I had to putz around and figure out on my own how this worked. Now they give us also a couple of additional lifecycle functions for the drop-in listener interface. One of these is on drop-in success. Like, so if it worked, as an example, then what you want to do is you get a drop-in result, and that drop-in result, you can change the payment method. You want to send this drop-in result, whatever they chose, to the server. The server then would communicate, like we said before, with the Braintree server, and then complete your request. Okay, so weird, right? Like, it doesn't have it. And there's some error handling that we have. So those are the two things we have here. Really not a great example. And even if I was to look at the GitHub repo for the drop-in, so if I go back to drop-in, which is what we have here, this is like the specific thing. So if I actually looked at the the drop-in itself, I went to source, and let's go to main, and let's go to some example code, which is what we're looking for here, right? So here's, you have a bunch of example code, and notice that two things. One, it's all in Java. So that's a problem. I don't like that. I mean, yes, could I convert it? Could I understand it? Of course. But should I have to? Should they not have a Kotlin version, or something else like that is available for us to use? I mean, yes, they should, right? So, so they have a bunch of stuff. They have a bottom sheet view adapter, and they have a bottom sheet view model and a bottom sheet view type. They have a bottom sheet fragment. This is kind of like, for you guys to know, like a mini activity. Let's go there, right? And then here is where you can start thinking about how this would work. So you have your drop-in view model. This is what we talked about when I was saying to you. You have your inflator. They're using synthetic binding. I wouldn't do that. So again, old in terms of the way they do things. They have a require activity that they're using. And then depending on the, if one of the supported methods is the method that you can use, it allows you to, to modify stuff. So they've given you some kind of example here, but to be honest with you, nothing that's usable by us very easily. It's really convoluted. And what I mean by that is it's actually quite difficult to understand and to parse. Could we do it? Yes, we could. Should we do this? Should we work so hard to make things work for Android or iOS? I don't think so. I mean, I thought, just to review the two things, and this is part of what we're doing here with APIs and frameworks, I would definitely think that Stripe is the way to go. I mean, Stripe covers most of this anyway, right? So, why would I want to go directly to Braintree if they have such a older API that doesn't work with Kotlin? And I can only imagine what the iOS side is going to be for you guys. Good luck. And I'm not laughing because I want you to work hard, but only because there's some challenges. Now, things that you can do when you make your other side is ChatGPT is okay. You guys use whatever tools you need to make this work. Let's see what I'm talking about here now with Android. So we're going to get rid of this because that's an error, and it's clearly wrong, right? And what we're going to do is I'm going to make this work. So let's just launch it. And then, again, all I want is for you to mimic exactly what I've done here on iOS. Okay, so nothing crazy, guys. Like really simple in-class exercise this time around. If everything works, and if I press pay with Braintree, what we should get is this. Look at that. That's beautiful. So this is the good part. This is the part I like. All right. Now, some stuff that we're not allowed to do. I can't do PayPal. If I click PayPal, everything closes down, right? And it didn't. If we look at the logcat here for a second, you can see why. It says fatal exception main. It says the request ID that we made, right? Let me just show you this for a second so you can see it. Failure delivering the results. It says on activity. And it says the results, the request is this, the result, and here's the data intent for this activity. And basically what it basically says to us is, well, the caused by attempt to invoke interface method void com Braintree's API drop-in listener on drop-in failure on a null object reference. So we don't have a on drop-in failure. Remember that kind of handler? We don't have this thing, and that's why this thing crashed. So realistically, we could put that in. And the way this would work is in the app compat activity, I could, and I'm going to try this in a bit, but I could implement the drop-in listener interface, and we need a couple of methods. So that didn't work. Let's redo that and let's try it. But I mean, it did generate the interface. So again, back to this. This is kind of cool. So we kind of pay with Braintree. What about this one? Well, that one kind of works okay, right? See this one? And you can put in a card number, right? And you want to have a card number for testing that's here. Notice that it accepts MasterCard, Visa, and a couple of other ones. You want to kind of hit with these two guys. And this is fully configurable with the drop-in thing. So it's not totally terrible, believe it or not. But last year, again, it was a lot easier than this. Let's put in that number. So where do I get that number? Well, I've shared that with you on Blackboard. So let's go to Blackboard. And I'm just going to exit from my full screen so you can see it. On Blackboard, there is this PayPal Braintree testing link that I gave you. And if we go there, you're going to see it kind of brings us to this. Don't worry about that it says Node.js SDK. What you should be worried about is your credit card numbers you can use for testing. And they give you a series of credit card numbers here that you can use. One of them is this one, 4111111, right? We're going to use that one. It's not going to really do anything. This is just, I'm just showing you how you can get the testing numbers for now. So back to this, and if I kind of go to full screen mode again, and if I go back to my Android here, and if I put those in, you can see that it nicely takes them. So 4111, 111, 1111, and 1111. And when I do that, notice that Visa is kind of highlighted here, but MasterCard and the other two payment options are grayed out. And then it basically says next. And if it asks me for expiration date, I'm just going to put in something like, I don't know, 11/28, and you can put whatever you want here. And CVV, I'm going to put 666. It doesn't matter. And the postal code, I'll put like L5V 3V5, making it up. Okay, it's probably not even correct. So then what it says is, let's add a card. And that's what this thing does. It allows me to add a payment method. So that's what that button is, add a payment method. Pay with Braintree, but add a payment method that you want to add. If I click add card, it craps out again. All right, and it craps out again for the same reasons, because if I go back to this, back to here, it basically says, let's take a look at logcat, right? And why it gave us this error again. It says fatal exception, right? And it says that failure delivering results. And if I scroll down, it says that the caused by void Braintree payments drop-in listener, that's what it says, on drop-in success on a null object. So this is like, hey, we have definitely a card. What do we do when we're on success? What do we do with this thing on success? Well, here's where we can add in those two methods that I talked about before. So let's go back to our documentation, right? And so here's the client. And we have these two methods. Here's on drop-in success, where we want to send information back to the server, and the server itself, we're going to send a nonce, that's what it's called, and we're going to communicate with the server saying, hey server, we're good, we got the result. Can you give me, the next piece, which is I want to pay with that card, kind of thing. So this is the integration we're going to use. Again, it's a very minimal documentation. It's not really great. There is a drop-in tutorial. We're going to come to that in a second, and I'll show you how this can work as well. But let's move on. So what we want to do is we want to put in drop-in listener as a as an interface. Let's do that. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go back to Android, and at the top of my function here, my main activity, I'm just going to paste in this drop-in listener. Drop-in listener, if you can hold on, it says import the class. So we do that. There's my imported class. And then we have an error here. And why? Because we haven't imported our, now it says make main activity abstract. No, we definitely don't want to do that. But it does want to do other things. If I kind of click on there, it tells us that implement members. That's what I want to do. So if I implement members here, There's 2 members to implement. One of them is on drop-in success. We saw both of them cause a problem for us. And on drop-in failure. So let's put those in. And it kind of makes these 2 little methods that we can use, right? So here, we're going to make a log I that basically says, oops, that basically says, there we go. We're going to make it a log I that basically says, you know, send card to server, or send information to server. So this is log I, and the tag will be, you know, something like success. We can actually make it so it's drop-in success, right? And the thing that we want to say is sending, you know, kind of drop-in results. Drop-in results to server. This is where this is going to go. This is when it happens. Log, of course, doesn't know what that is. We can add in, and we can import the class log to take that message away. And then we do the same thing for this one. Now, this is where we would handle any error. So if you have an error, what is the error that we're getting? Well, we want to log I that error, whatever that error is. So we can do that. Say log I. So it won't crash this way. See what I'm saying? It's not going to go somewhere. Log I, and we're going to say whatever that error is. So we're going to say drop-in failure, right? And when we get that error, we're going to say error, and then we want to inject that error in here. That's what you want, right? That's what you want to do, right? We want to inject that error, and it kind of says, hey, redundant curly braces, da 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 da, remove curly braces. We can do that, right? Which is kind of the way, that's the Kotlin way, and we're good to go. So now let's see if we were to do that same thing. So let's refresh, and we're to do the same thing. What's the next steps that we can use? So again, if I go here, and then let's say pay with Braintree, we go to PayPal, and then we should not crap out. But what did it do? Did we get the error? So let's go back to Logcat, and we want to see what the error that we got was, because it should crap out with an error, and it should happen like an exception that happened as well. So, you know, we can search for drop-in failure, and let's see what it does. So we can say, let's search for drop-in, right? Drop-in failure. And let's see what that is. That's what we're looking for, drop-in failure. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Drop-in failure. And we want to see that what that is, okay? So that's the drop-in failure. So this is the fatal exception, but notice that it never got there. Never got to this drop-in error thing. It just had a fatal exception and crapped out right away. Okay, that's what it did. So what could we put there instead if we're going to have something? I mean, it'd be nice if we had the ability to detect what the issue is, and I want to be able to launch the activity based on the result of my my launcher. So one problem that I can tell you that we have is this thing right here. All we're doing is we're launching the drop-in, but there's some stuff that we can do afterwards. So, you know, it's almost like what I want to do is I want to respond, you know, to the launch. After this is done, you know, it's almost like I want this to do something different. This launch drop-in is just going to come back here. That's where it's going to resolve, right? And that's what the thing is going to do. So again, very little documentation on how this would work. All right, so this is cool. What about if I was to try it again and put in the credit card number? Is it going to still crap out? So again, if I was going to go in here, and if I go to credit card number and I put that credit card number in there, so again, 4111, 1111, 1111, 1111. Pretty simple. Visa, go through the process, step through 1127, let's say 666, and L4V 4V5. How about that? All right. As the postal code, I click Add Card. it craps out again. And if I go back to logcat, right, again, strictly back to this, right, where it says fatal exception, it kind of does the same thing. It kind of says, well, void, Braintree, attempted to invoke interface method, for drop-in listener, and it says on drop-in failure, do this. Okay, all right. I see this. I see you, but we missed something, right? If I go back to this, it said that once we have the drop-in listener, the drop-in client set listener to this is what we have to do. That's the one thing we missed. So again, back to this. So drop-in client, that's this. So I'm going to say drop-in client, and I have to say set listener to this, right? Which basically says that this is going to be your, kind of like what on the iOS side, the data source and delegate for what we're doing. That's what this part is. Okay, so that's the drop-in client listener. One more time. Let's try that again. Let's try the success part first. So again, on success, I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to go here, and 4111, 1111, 1111, 1111, and next, 1127, 666, L4V. You can use whatever numbers you want, 4V5, whatever, add card. Hey, didn't crash this time. That's what I wanted. And so what happens is if I go back to this, and if I scroll down, so this is drop-in failure. What about drop-in success? Do we have that? Here it is. And it says, we got to this point where it says drop-in success, sending drop-in's result to server. So this is where you'd put that in there. As soon as we have this, then what it would do is it would come back to this point right here, this drop-in success part. And here is where you could put in, okay, well, we got some with the drop-in result, right? And what we did with the drop-in result, we want to send this drop-in result back to the server, right? And the server is going to take care of the next part. So what does the server do? So if I go back to my simple server example here, we've done everything so far that we can do. And the simple server, you can choose in the back end what you want to use. I'm going to use Node.js here as an example. So there's Node.js. And it kind of talks about how to configure the server, and take a look at this. So in the configuration, you can put in your credentials, your merchant ID, your public key, your private key, all the stuff that you have here. This is really your authentication when it comes to the back end. That's what this part is there. Then, right, there's two ways of doing this. You can do as a callback or a promise, right? And then what you want is the gateway client token generate. You want to generate the token ID when you get something back. You don't have to do it this way. For example, in the callback scenario, you can make this a controller on the back end of your server. And what you want to do is you want to respond with the token to the client. That's what this part is. So then here's your route. So they're using app.get. We use router, right, to do this. So a GET request. And then here's the promise version. It doesn't matter. And then what we want to do is we want to set that, generate the token, and we want a response with that token back to the client. So that's what this does. This is what I was telling you about before, where we kind of get that. Now here is receiving a payment method from your client. This is the next part. We would do a post request, right? And the post request would include the payment information in the request body. So the request body itself is going to carry the payment information that we just got, right? And then from that, we would create our transaction. All right, so this is not that difficult to set up. Are we going to do it today? No, we're not. Because, like I said, I've checked this out and I've gone through the entire part, and it's not the best in terms of the result we're going to get, how it looks online, and a bunch of stuff. The information here is pretty shoddy on how it works, and I'm not happy with this in general. There is a drop-in tutorial, which is kind of cool, and it kind of talks about how to, they use the Express generator. Please don't ever use the Express generator. Definitely use my little generator if you're going to try this out for yourself. Again, this is not part of the in-class exercise, but if you're going to try it, this is what I would do. And then it talks about how to set up your interface. They're using handlebars, so they actually, going to make an Express, server. And then they install everything, they install Braintree, they add the drop-in, and then here they're doing this on the client side. So they're doing this all with JavaScript. Remember I said this, like this JavaScript, lots of support. But on the UI side, on the Android side, not really great. Not really. It would be nice if they had different drop-in tutorials for Android, for iOS, and also for for the web. And they really don't here in the documentation. Could you look up some tutorials on YouTube? Certainly you could. Should we need to look up tutorials on YouTube to make this go and to work very, very hard where we can do this with Stripe in 2 seconds? Not sure. I'm not sure that is worthy for you guys to do. And they're using an AJAX request here. Again, I would probably do this totally different than this. I might use something else instead of just a raw AJAX request. They're doing it with jQuery. Not sure. I would maybe use a fetch request here. Even fetch would look nicer and be more modern than this part. They're also using JavaScript. I might use TypeScript in the modern world. I think it's kind of the way to go. And they're doing it all within a script tag, which is again very basic, right, in terms of the way this is done. Could I make this work? Yes, I probably can make this work. Do I want to make it work? I honestly think it's not really that great. They talk about how to add routes here, and how to kind of make this work with a router.post. And this is kind of, they're showing you how this works out with the merchant ID and so on. They're actually embedding it right here inside of the router.post. And remember what this is. This, in effect, is what we would do with our controller. Our controller function would be looking like this too if we were going to communicate back to our application. So again, not a lot of great support. So what do I want you guys to do other than this? Because we've talked about it a little bit. So again, try a couple of other things. First, what if I type in PayPal? It should just take us back here because it's a failure. We haven't set up PayPal at all. Same thing if I wanted to go with Google Pay. We haven't set up Google Pay. It should just take you back here. That is the behavior that I want you to set up for iOS. So basically the only thing I want you to work out is this piece where it actually kind of presents this to you in iOS. How do we do it? Similar functionality is the answer. Let's go back, and I want to show you what were hints on where you can do it. Now I've done it, so I know it's doable. All right. So it's not like I'm giving you something that's impossible to do. This is possible. Okay. If it wasn't possible, you wouldn't get this kind of little assignment. So back to setting up your client. This is what you would do for iOS. Here, instead of JDK for JavaScript JDK 3, you're going to choose iOS. And if you chose 6, it's going to say, you can collect customer payment information with the SDK, accept more stuff. And if you scroll down, it says, Braintree iOS version 6 SDK does not support the drop-in UI. Please refer to iOS 5 SDK doc for more information to use drop-in. So this is right there a problem. Well, I don't like that, right, with SDK. But we can totally do it. They do recommend to use the Swift Package Manager for iOS. And I'll get you going on this. Remember, we did this last week actually. The same thing. You go to your Swift Package Manager, you put in this into the link, and then manually you're going to have to put in the stuff that you're going to get. So if we're going to set up a brand new Xcode project, and I'll start off with this. First, let me put this stuff on GitHub so you have an example before I forget. So much stuff, right? So git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added simple functionality to demonstrate Braintree in Android, but not really complete. So this is incomplete. There's more to do if we were going to do this together. Git push. Again, I'm not asking you to do more, right? And what? Git push -- force. Rule violations. What rule violations do I have? To push, remove solo secret from commits. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So this, it doesn't even like me to put this up, right? So it basically says that the commit location, because I'm putting in the What's this say? This is new. Browser rule violations found, references header main. GitHub push, resolve the following violations before pushing again. Push cannot contain secrets. This is new. This repository does not have secret scanning enabled, but it is eligible. Enable secret scanning to view and manage detected secrets. Visit the repository. Okay, let's do that. Because we're not using a .m file equivalent for this. So private vulnerability reporting, depend upon alerts. We can disable the depend upon alerts for now. But secret scanning, eh? Secrets and variables. Actions, secrets, new repository secret. Okay. So interesting that they've changed that kind of stuff. So let's go to rules again. Interesting. That's a new thing for me. Let's go back to this and let's just press that one more time. It's going to take us back to the right link. So allow your community privately dependency graph, Dependabot, group security updates, action runners, code scanning, tools, protection rules, check runs failure threshold, secret scanning. Okay, receive alerts on GitHub for detected secrets, keys, or other tokens. Okay, let's see if that works. So I set that up, and it saved changes. All right. I don't see how this is going to help. And what secret am I giving it anyway? I'm not putting anything up. I'm putting in actually a random number. That number, that code is not real, right? So, which is really weird that it thought it was real. One sec. Just looking at my security. Isn't that amazing? And again, I'm happy that it's doing it, because I think it's good. But it's annoying that I'm just trying to demonstrate this with you guys and I have to do it. All right, that's that. And I don't think it's going to change anything. Right. I don't think it's going to change anything. It says push protection. Block commits that contain supported secrets. No. I want alerts, but I don't want to block those commits. Okay, so let's see if I can do that. So back to this. Let's see if we can do that again. So git push. Yeah, I know. But where is that line? It says commit. It says settings Gradle. And settings Gradle KTS31. How is that a secret? Oh. Right. I don't understand what the secret is. The secret is in this thing here. I get it now. So, remember this that I was talking about? This is the password secret that it wants, right? Oh man. So we're just going to take it out. And you have this. I already showed you this. This is coming from the stuff that we have. I'm just going to put this up so we can finish. But that password here and here, you have it already. I've already given it to you as a link. So you don't need me to do it. And when you put yours up, after you test it and show it, just do the same thing. Let's see if this is going to work. Let's just see. So I've saved it, and let's see if that is sufficient for Google, or sorry, GitHub. Nope. Because to push remove secret from commits or follow this URL to allow the secret. Secret scanning. Okay, I will do that. I will do it. And mine's public. That's why yours may not bug out like that because yours is a private thing. At least put that back then. If I can allow the secret, I will. So I will do undo and undo, save, and then let's just do the same thing. One more thing to do. I don't think you're going to have this problem, but hey, that's okay. And it found the secret, allowed to expose secret, secret allowed. You can now push the secret to the repository. It's not really a big secret, and hopefully they're not going to bother me about it. And by the way, if you ever push stuff on the repository and if it's a real secret, they'll send you stuff saying we'll shut you down if there's an and I'll shortly see if this is an issue. By the way, all right, so let's do that and push again. Awesome. Okay, let's see if Braintree is going to send me a note. It's almost instantaneous when you do this kind of stuff, right? I'm just letting you know. All right, so this is the first part. Action needed. Secrets detected. Ha! I did get a email. Let's see what it's going to tell me. One sec, guys. Just want to see how bad this is. Actions detected. All right. Action needed. Please resolve these alerts. JFrog. Platform API key. Okay. And if I click there, what is it going to give me? Possible. This is the one. See, I told you this is the possible active secret. All right. And there it is. This is what it's having a problem with, right? Okay. So I can say this is, so what it does is it gives us an alert. This is a security alert that comes up, and that's what kind of comes up and shows us there's an issue. All right. And if they have a problem, like I said, with me, then they're going to send me another little thing that says, hey, just letting you know, if you continue doing this, we're going to shut your stuff down. Okay? So that is set up security policy. Help your community understand how to securely report vulnerabilities. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. All right, so what about iOS? Because this is where I really want to get to. I've already put it up on GitHub. You should be able to see it by the time you see this video. So that's something that, let's go to secret scanning. And let me just, yeah. It's only because I turned it on that I got that alert, which is kind of cool. So I want to go back to this, and I want to talk about how to set up your stuff for iOS as opposed to the stuff for Android. So let's do that. I'll start you off with this stuff so that I'm not completely going to leave you in the dust here. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to terminate and stop this Android stuff. So Android stuff is done. And then let's go here, and maybe what we'll do is we'll disable that again. So we're not going to get any of those things. All right. So what I want to do next is let's set up iOS. So in Xcode, let's make a brand new project and make an app to start you off so you can see how this would work. I'm going to call this ICE11 iOS, which is what you're going to do. And I'm going to click next. It's going to ask me where I want to put it. I'm going to put it exactly where this is, and I'm going to click create. And it makes it. And just to show you this, it's here, ICE11 iOS. This should be actually ICE11 Android. I'll just rename it like so that you guys can see this name properly, like this. But ICE11 iOS is where we're at. And so I wanted to show you that part with the, I'm just going to minimize or maximize this part. I want to show you the part that I talked about. So under file, remember we can have, what we want to do is we want to add package dependencies like we did last week. And then here is where you'd put in that code when you're searching. So let's do that. So I'm going to go back to this, and so I'm going to go into the proper place for it, which is here. And here is the iOS dependency. So I'm going to grab that. And I'm going to go back to Xcode and I'll put that in here. And then sign into your GitHub account. All right. Why does it want me to do that? Oh boy. And your personal access token. Passwords. Create a token on GitHub. New personal access token. This sucks. I hate that stuff. Full repo control, workflows. We'll give it all. Delete packages. What this does is basically you're setting up, kind of capabilities for your token, so it can do stuff on iOS. Again, I kind of like it. The security part of it, I don't like that it's slowing me down. That I don't like. Generate token. Oh yeah, no, this can't be global. We'll call this the iOS token. There we go. Can't be blank. It says this will last for, token will expire in 30 days. We'll say no expiration. So I don't want to have problems with this again. Sorry, I missed this part. I wanted to do everything that I want to do. And let's generate that token. There's my token. I'm going to copy it. And it should be okay to go back to Xcode with and put that in. Paste. And let's sign in. And press OK. And we'll do the same thing. Paste and sign in, and we'll say OK. And we're running into a really nice loop here that I don't like. GitHub, yeah, that's me. I guess it's doing that for all of them. So this is a bunch to get from GitHub. And I wonder if this is going to keep going forever. What if I cancel? Put that in there. So to that. And let's put that in there. Creation. Account creation failed. No, I don't need an account to create. Cancel. All right. Let's try that again. How about those apples? So I'm going to go into new package dependencies, and we'll put in a source from GitHub, Apple Swift packages. Let's see if they have that. Search the package URL, and let's try and get that information again. I guess I better kill that token. Which I really don't need. Yeah, I'll kill that token. All right, so back to this Xcode. Let's try that again. All right, so there we are. So that's where it does. And we want my personal access token. Okay, and let's get that token from here. Wow, it didn't give me this issue before, but that's what we have to generate. Why is this giving me issues? Okay. Make sure a valid repository exists at the specified location and that the correct credentials have been supplied. log in. Okay. All right. Let's go back to that stuff. Okay, so it says package dependency is here. Add dependency. Tick the button, check boxes for the specifically Braintree libraries you wish to include. This is preventing me from doing that. Let's go to the other package, which is this one. So if you can't do this, guys, this is like, I will remove it from your requirements because I'm having issues. And if I'm having issues, then you're going to have issues. Okay, let's try it again. Maybe I didn't get the whole link, this part right here. There we go. And let's go back to that. And I didn't get the whole link. I'm trying to log into the wrong thing. There we go. Okay. That's what I want. And I want to click Add Package. I just didn't put in the whole link. And that means I can delete my personal access token. Revoke all. Which is exactly what I want to do. Okay. Okay, so that is that. That's revoked. So we don't need that. Let's go back to this. And there we go. We want this one. Add that package. And then, like we said last time, so here is Braintree drop-in. That's what we have. That's the only thing we got here, Braintree drop-in. And then there's the Braintree version, right? If I want to, if there's anything else I want to drop in, they would be available here, right? But that is the main one we want, okay? So this is all good. So now that we've got this, and that was nicely done, then the next part is what we did last time. So for you do the same thing with your main storyboard. Put a button in the main storyboard. So this is what you would do. And then I'll leave the rest to you. I'm telling you, this isn't that difficult, although I made it look difficult, it's not. So here's our button. You know, we'll say pay with Braintree, just like the same thing as we did before. Let's just go here. Pay with Braintree, right? And when you click that button, it's going to bring everything up. And that is what it should do. Okay, this is good. I like it. So what is the next step for you? Where do you look to do the next parts? Well, you'd have to connect that button like we normally do. So again, if I go back to the documentation, right, that's here. Then we installed the stuff that we need. Now here in Swift, it says fetch the client token, right? And it says switch the URL to your own authenticated API. This is the URL. And this is the client token, right? And then the client token requests, that's the URL. And then the client token is a string of whatever it's going to be. Guess what we're going to use? We're going to use the same one that I had before. And this is that client token. And then, so here, look, here's that same string that I used. This is where I got it from, by the way. So this same string is authorization. So try it now. You can get this. Now present the drop-in. So function show drop-in, and the show drop-in function is going to present the drop-in. Here is what we're talking about. So it's not that difficult. Take a look. I'm not going to do it all for you, but this show drop-in is something that you'd want to be able to do when you press the button. Okay, again, you can use ChatGPT to help you. You can use whatever you want, but we're pretty much halfway there. The only thing I wanted to do with you is just show you how to get that stuff. Put a little button there, press the drop-in, it should come down here, and you should have the exact same or very similar interface that comes up down here. Okay, that is for you to do. Demonstrate that on in your simulator and in your video, and you're good to go for full marks for in-class exercise 11. And after this, my friends, that's all. The only thing I want to do here is I'm just going to go and put this part. So if you wanted to start with my in-class exercise 11 iOS and start with that and modify it from there, because I haven't really done anything here, you can certainly do that. If you just, kind of, and I mean, when I say start with it, like use this as an example, a reference, that's what I mean. Let me just put that in there. And we'll say git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added iOS app template, which is what we kind of did, right? And just go back to this. And then git push. There we go. All right, so that is everything you need to get going. I wanted to show you what I'm talking about here, and I pointed you in the right direction. Hopefully, you'll be able to set up something very similar to what we did with Android here. Even with my putzing around and fooling around, I mean, you can see what it is. And again, what is the underlying motive here? Like, why am I getting you to do this if it's not fully working? Because normally, you know me, I'm always trying to make things work for you guys. I'm getting you to understand challenges of using different payment gateways. And this is one big challenge that you're going to be facing. That's it for me for this week, guys. Again, I'm just going to go back to what we're doing here today. Just a reminder about what's happening. So this is ICE 11 goals. I kind of put it here. You to do create a similar front end on the iOS platform using your tools. Just a reminder, next week we are talking about deployment options. I will be using Azure, maybe, or AWS or GCP to show you how we can put our little API up there instead of on render. If you have prior experience to this, then ICE 12 will be no problem. It'll be nice and easy for you. That's all we're doing next week. And then I will be talking about a brief exam review next week, because the final week there will be no lecture. I will be presenting your exam early, like probably on August 11th, the same day that assignment 4 is due. I'll make your exam available, and then it'll be due at the end of the week on Friday, August the 16th, if I'm not wrong. If I look at August now, Friday, August the 16th at midnight, you'll have the entire week to get your exam done, just like we've done before, and you're good to go. Okay? If you have any questions, as always, please connect with me on Discord or send me an email. Please do not use Blackboard messaging. Okay? Guys, thank you so much, and see you all next week.